Hey, welcome to our lesson on skin cancer. This falls under the concept of cellular regulation. Cellular regulation really just means that the cell is the basic structure of the human body. Every cell serves a specialized purpose in the body. Cells form organs, organs form organ systems, and organ systems form organisms. So skin cancer is a disorder of those skin cells where they mutate and then they kind of form their own being, which is what cancer is, right? It just changes so much that it no longer mimics its parent cell, and it doesn't die when it's supposed to, and it just keeps replicating. So it's pretty common in the U.S. There's definitely some risk factors that we're going to talk about that we probably share. So this mostly is as a result of exposure to UV light that damages the cell membrane and eventually over time can change the DNA of that cell, and then it just mutates and proliferates. So some risk factors would be less melanin in the skin. So the more melanin you have, that kind of protects you from developing this. Anyone who's on immunosuppression therapy, so people with autoimmune disorders, for example, or maybe somebody that is receiving chemotherapy. Extended time in the sun, that's why I said we're all kind of probably at risk around here. We live close to the beach, we spend a lot of time outside. Age is a risk factor, so the incidence increases with aging. And anyone who tans, that can include tanning beds or tanning outside. Here's a little helpful way to remember some of these clinical manifestations. So when we're looking at moles and freckles, we want to make sure they're symmetric, so they're the same on both sides. If you split it in half and those two halves don't match up, then that's a problem. We want the border to be smooth. We don't want jagged or blurry borders. The color should be uniform. If there are several different colors in one mole or freckle, then that's a problem. If it grows larger than 6 millimeters, then we need to maybe do a biopsy. So 6 millimeters is about the size of a pencil eraser. And then if it's changing, so if you've had this same mole or freckle your whole life and now it's looking different, the shape's changing, the color's changing, anything like that, then that's something that we need to check out. So we diagnose this by doing a biopsy. We'll take that tissue sample and look at it under a microscope. Typically, if there is an area of concern, they try to take the entire section out, get all those cancerous cells at one time, just in case it is cancer, so that they don't have to come back later and do a whole other biopsy again. So that's called getting clean borders. We want the entire area to be removed. So the number one treatment would be excision of that cancerous area. That's not always possible depending on the location of where it is. So they could do cryotherapy or radiation to that area. And then they can do chemotherapy. And some of that chemotherapy may be topical where it's in a cream. That way it can be more localized instead of just treating the whole body if that's not what we need to do. So lots of nursing interventions. Prevention is really the most important thing here. So if we have somebody that we know is at high risk, so a very pale or freckly person, they should be limiting their time in the sun, especially those hours between 10 and 2 when the sun is at the highest and the UV index is at the highest. Everyone should be wearing sunscreen regardless of how much melanin they have in their skin. Everyone should be wearing at least SPF of 30 every day that they're going to be outside. It needs to be applied at least 30 minutes before sun exposure and should be reapplied every 2 hours or more often if you're swimming. If you're swimming, you should reapply as soon as you get out of the water, maybe every half an hour. So that's not typically what people are doing, and that's why the incidences are so high, particularly in areas like this that are close to the beach. Make sure you're doing skin assessments. People should be going to the dermatologist at least once a year, especially if they're a high-risk person, because there's places that you may not think to look at, areas like your back, the back of your legs, things that you can't see as easily that a dermatologist can look at. And check areas that you wouldn't normally think of, like underneath fingernails and toenails. Anything that looks suspicious anywhere should be checked out. biggest complication with this is metastasis, and it can happen. So, typically if we catch this early, it's very easy to treat. We can just get rid of the cancerous area, but if it's ignored for a long period of time, it's going to start to spread and get into the bloodstream and then into the lymph nodes, and then it spreads through the rest of the body. And once it metastasizes, then that's when it's a risk for becoming deadly. So make sure you do your readings, and we'll talk about this a little more in class. I'll see you there.